If you have not read these books yet, I envy you. These are the 11 books that I wish I could read for the first time all over again, and some books that you should probably add to your TBR. This will likely be part 1 of this video because I'm certain that as I continue reading and discovering more books that I will want to make different renditions of this video in the future. But for now, these are the 11 books that I would kill to read for the first time all over again because they were that good, in my opinion. First up, we have Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This book is so underrated. I don't see it talked about enough, and it does not get enough hype on Book Talk, BookTube, Bookstagram, anywhere, honestly. This book is beautifully written. The prose are so lyrical, and the setting is so immersive. I loved every second of reading this book. It is about toxic relationships, it's about gaslighting, and it's a mystery, so honestly, what is there to not love about this book? A Little Life. Okay, I may get hate from some of you about liking this book because I know it's very polarizing, but if you know what I mean. This book was unlike anything I have ever read and probably will ever read again. I love these characters so much. I've never felt attached to characters simply just living their lives. I read this book, I think 2 years ago at this point, and I still think about it at least a couple times a month. I mean, you can see all my tabs. My plan is to reread this at some point, and I keep saying that, and then I have so many other books to read. But despite this book being completely devastating, there's so many beautiful moments and so much love and happiness in this book, while there is a ton of absolute heartbreak and like you will be ripped to shreds. If you haven't read this, you need to read the trigger warning. So this book follows 4 characters in New York City. They are college classmates, and it follows them from the time they meet in college all the way through to their like 50s and 60s. And you just learn so much about each character and why they do the things that they do and the behind the scenes that's going on with each of them and how they interact with each other. It should not be taken lightly, but it is one of my favorite books of all time. Next up, we have the Atlas 6 series. I have not read the Atlas Complex yet, but it's the only physical copy I have out of all the books in the series. When I originally read the first book, I didn't think that it was gonna be a 5-star series for me, but the longer it's been since I read those first 2 books, the more that I love it and at least wish that I could experience it for the first time again, because I loved the dark academia vibes, the like secret society and the magic system and the morally gray characters. It's just such a fun read, and also while you're reading it, you just feel smarter while you're reading it. Not that you're actually becoming any more intelligent, but it has a way of making you feel as though you are there studying and learning. You are learning physics, you are in the sciences, you're just an intelligent, intellectual being because you're reading these books. And if I could experience that for the first time again, I'd pay some cold hard cash to do that. And I'm hoping that this book is going to be a 5-star read for me. Have yet to read it, it's on my TBR. And from all the little blurbs on this one seems like even more of a page turner. Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I read this during the summer and on my trip to Europe, and I bought this copy in Europe actually because I brought my library book and then I saw this paperback copy and I was like, gotta have it. I honestly put off reading this for so long. It was so hyped, so popular on TikTok, and I was like, I'm not gonna like that. It's about video games. I don't really care about video games. I used to when I was younger. Don't really play them much anymore. But when I tell you, I think everybody should give this book a try. The writing feels like coming home. Someone described this book to me as that's why they liked it so much, was because the writing just makes you feel at home. And I'm like, yes, that is exactly it. From the moment you pick up the book and read the first page, you feel like you belong in the story. It's about our main characters, Sam and Sadie. They are video game designers. They met when they were younger under sort of interesting circumstances and became friends, and then sort of fell in love with video games together, and that was kind of the start of their friendship. And then as they get older, they start making video games together, and it's sort of about their relationship. It's about video games, and the parts where they do talk about video games is actually really interesting, and it made me have a newfound appreciation for video games and the storytelling and the creative work that goes into making them. But that's only a fraction of the story. The main story of this book is just it's a beautiful character-driven book about relationships, and more than that, it's about platonic relationships and how sometimes your friendships can be more important to you and your growth as a person than your romantic relationships. And fair warning, this will break your heart. With that in mind, if you're a sad girly and you love sad girl books, this is a good book. You should definitely pick it up. But again, if I could experience this one for the first time, take all my memories I don't care. Take them all. I'll become a whole new person as long as I get to read this for the first time. All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Dower. I will be honest with you, I could probably read this and feel like I'm reading it for the first time again because I read this probably 7 or 8 years ago at this point. And this is a historical fiction novel set in World War II in France. And it follows our main character, who is a young girl who lives with her father and has gone blind, but her father built her a little miniature of their neighborhood so she could memorize it. So that's how she navigates and gets around. The war happens and her father are trying to escape. And then there's a second perspective that you get of a young boy. I believe he's German. That's my loose memory of this book, but I definitely want to read it again soon because I know they just came out with a series and I don't know if it's any good, but I definitely want to reread this one more time because I just remember raving about this book when I first read it, and it was my favorite book of all time for so many years, and I definitely think I could experience it for the first time, almost, if I read it today. So highly recommend this if you guys haven't read it, and I'm recommending myself to reread it. Then we have another Gabrielle Zevin book on this list because honestly, she's a wonderful author. What I would kill to read for the very first time again is The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. It's a super quick read, but this book is definitely a book for book people, for people who love stories, who love character-driven stories. This book follows our main character, A.J. He is grieving the loss of his wife. He owns a bookshop called Island Books, and randomly a baby is just left in his bookshop. And at the same time, one of his most prized possessions, collectible books that he was going to use the money from that to retire on, is stolen. So you have this grumpy old guy who owns a bookstore, which makes it cozy. He's grieving the loss of his wife. There's a local cop that just like makes the whole story a little bit more lighthearted. And then there's the mystery of like why this baby has just been left on his doorstep and where his book has gone. And then there's a little bit of romantic tension between him and then a literary agent who is coming to his bookstore to sell him books. And it's just like an ode to stories themselves, and it will leave you completely devastated and heartbroken. And again, that is why I wish I could experience it for the first time, because I'm a weirdo who just loves to cry at a good book, you know? Next up, The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay. This book is honestly underhyped. If you kind of liked the idea of reading A Little Life, but you want something way less traumatizing, I would recommend reading The Great Believers. Set in Chicago during the AIDS epidemic, and you just fall in love with the characters and you absolutely get your heart destroyed. Next up, Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This one is a nonfiction book. It's a memoir. It's basically just her recounting her 20s and what it's like to be approaching your 30s, what it feels like to be going through a breakup, what it feels like to watch all of your friends get married and have babies, and maybe you're the outcast. It touches on so many things that women go through in their 20s and 30s, and it's hilarious. So I highly recommend it. It's so relatable. It's definitely going to be a reread for me, and I wish I could reread it for the first time. Also, Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I wish I could experience that for the first time. This is the second book in that series. Haven't read this one yet. Reading Divine Rivals was such a fun experience because I normally don't read YA novels and I normally don't read a lot of romance. And it's kind of like a romantasy where the two main characters are talking to each other through a magical typewriter, but one of them doesn't know who the other person is. It was just such a cozy, fun, atmospheric read, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I wish I could experience it for the first time all over again. So I'm hoping that reading this book gives me those same vibes and maybe even better. And then another book that I wish I could experience for the first time all over again would definitely be Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. I listened to the audiobook in January and it totally just like rocked my world. If you don't like slower paced character driven stories, definitely don't pick it up then. But if you do appreciate slower paced character driven stories, then I highly recommend this book. I listened to the audiobook that's narrated by Meryl Streep, and I normally don't like audiobooks. Like I hate audiobooks, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try it. It was so good. I want to get a physical copy and reread it and annotate it because some of the lines I was like, oh, I need that written in my veins. It's a mother telling the story of one summer romance that she had with a now famous actor before he was famous. She's telling the story to her 3 daughters. They're all back home because it's set during COVID, but COVID is really just like the backdrop. it's not really discussed at all. But essentially, she is telling the story to them as they're working on their cherry farm. And it's honestly just like such a fun story, and it's a cool concept of how our parents have complete lives and are their own separate beings before we existed, and we never asked them about it, or at least we don't ask them about it enough. There are so many moments where Ann Patchett writes something and I'm like, that is that feeling that I've been feeling, but you put it into words that I would have never thought of. So many times I was like laughing or I was tearing up. I would listen to it while I was at work and I would be typing away and then I would literally start tearing up at work. Anyway, I wish I could experience it for the first time all over again. So if you haven't listened to it yet, definitely give it a try. Oh my God, it was so good. And last but not least, number 11, which is really not one book, but a million books. Anything written by Miss Sarah J Maas. And I may be basic, but I don't care. I love being basic because I've had so much fun reading ACOTAR. I'm doing the tandem read right now. I'm almost done with it. And then I'm gonna read Kingdom of Ash. Have the worst book hangover of my life aside from when I finished ACOTAR. And I'm gonna have to read all 3 Crescent City series books. And then I'm gonna have to wait until her next book comes out. And don't get me wrong, I love other books. I'm trying to get into other fantasy books, but nothing hits like Sarah J Maas hits. It's a very specific part of my brain that she connects with, and I love other books. I have great experiences with other books, but not in the way that I experience her writing. If you guys know, you know what I'm talking about, and I know some people love to hate on her, and you're entitled to your own opinion. And I'm entitled to mine, and mine is that I wish I could experience her writing for the first time all over again every single week because it's so good. And I'm currently experiencing the tandem read for the first time, and last night I was literally sitting right here in this corner. If you can't tell, this is my favorite corner of the apartment. But no, honestly, I was sitting here reading and I kept just stopping and being like, this is so fun. Like, I'm having the time of my life right now. Like, I'm just literally sitting on a couch, not doing anything, but my heart is beating. My heart is literally beating because of what's happening to these characters. These made up people that don't exist are making my blood pressure skyrocket. They're making me sweat and I'm not even moving. In fact, the window is open and I'm kind of cold, but I'm still sweating. I'm in a cold sweat because I'm so stressed about what's gonna happen to these characters that don't actually exist, but they feel so real. And I love them. And I wanna know them, I wanna be them. Anyway, if you haven't read Sarah J Maas, just please do it. Like, I thought I would not be into ACOTAR. I was like, no, I don't read fantasy anymore. I read that when I was younger, like whatever. That girl, I don't know her anymore because I was talking to my friend about this. I was looking at fan art on the internet and she was laughing at me. She was like, I can't imagine you liking fan art or like being that invested in a series of anything. And I was like, that's the issue. And now she's reading ACOTAR. She's on the second book. She just started the second book. Actually, you know what's weird? Literally everyone I know in my personal life right now, yeah, pretty much everyone I know in my personal life right now or hang out with in any capacity, they are all reading ACOTAR or Throne of Glass. And it's kind of, except one, but she's already read all of it. So like, yeah, but it's just like, it's really seeping in. Even people who don't read a lot are reading it. And I'm like, Sarah J Maas is really taking over. She kind of gives me like the same energy as like Taylor Swift, but as an author. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously totally different. But like the fan base, and like, I'm not really into like the Easter eggs or like hints and clues in the books as much as some people are, but it kind of reminds me of like Taylor Swift Easter eggs, you know? And I feel like she could really lean into that with like her marketing and stuff. I don't know if she does, but just a thought. But anyway, those are all 11 of the books that I wish I could read for the very first time. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I really hope that you decide to subscribe to my channel and stick around and potentially see me in the next video. It will honestly probably be the Throne of Glass reading vlog, I'm hoping. Hope to see you guys in my next video or somewhere else on the internet. Okay, bye!